So I think there's the potential of what you guys are doing that deepens those bonds that's even bigger than, just having a fun chat.
I appreciate that, Jeff, because I have one of the real blessings I've gotten from uh, you know, doing this podcast with Tom about camp are the connections, the reconnections that have been made.
Yeah.
Darn it! I actually, Tom, I wanted to send you some pictures that I was going to show. We'll do it next time. But um, Amy went down to Florida with my
Oh yeah.
family
Yeah.
and connected with Kathy Weisberg Sweeney, and they went on a hike. They didn't see any alligators, but they saw turtles. But they just got together and like 30, whatever, 5, 8 years that you just mentioned.
Yeah, after they
Uh,
roomed together 38
yeah.
years ago. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just really meaningful. So,
Well, last week we had a 1987 boat crew reunion on this call.
yeah,
That's awesome.
It
yeah.
is
So
awesome.
I would have been
What
on
year
boat
were yeah?
crew.
What year
I
were you
think
on
I think it
boats?
would have been 1983.
And with who?
Yeah.
So Paul Hurley was the head of it.
Oh, all right, awesome.
And then uh, Jay Sedgwick, who I ended up rooming with in Dallas Seminary, was on there. He was from Butler,
Oh, jeez.
Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And then let's see, Dorothy Hostetter's brother. What's Hostetter? What's his first name? You probably remember him.
Uh,
Dougie Schoen was our Dougie Schoen was the guy who would help every morning to carry and go do the food runs. So
really?
Dougie was my
Okay.
my partner to come help do the food and
That's funny.
That's
but
awesome.
yeah, it was a really good group of people and very
Yeah.
formative.
Yeah, so Dougie was my cousin and is
Still
still
is, right?
my cousin. I saw him in January. I went down to Walt Maloon's funeral, and
Mm,
I stayed at Dougie's house. And Dougie has a beard down to here right now,
no.
like ZZ
Mhm.
Top. And
Mhm.
so there were a few people that we connected with. It was Dwight Jacobson and Dave Anderson, and uh,
Oh, that must have been such a cool reunion.
it
You know
was.
what I saw? I saw a picture of a bunch of Camp of the Woods people that included them. I didn't know it was Walt Malone's funeral. I just saw that
Okay.
there was a gathering
Yeah.
where a bunch of you were together.
Yeah, if you look at it and look all the way to the right, that was Dougie with the ZZ Top beard, and
Hilarious.
he's awesome.
Mhm.
We'll have him on sometime.
That's
Let's
great. I
go.
mean, and I've been friends with the Armstrongs since I've been little.
Oh,
This
So
would be James
so you were
Armstrong.
you were always little Donnie to me and them
that's
with
right.
Mrs. Armstrong's Yugoslavian accent, little Donnie. So
Listen, I remember I was with James. I spent a lot of time with James, and I was with him, and somebody said to him, "Oh, your mom, and oh, what a great lady," blah blah, blah. And with her accent, and he was like, "What are you talking about?" And
right, he didn't know.
he
It was
and
like
he's like,
the air
and
he
looked at me, he's
breathed.
like, "Donnie, does my mom have an accent?" And I'm like,
Yes.
"Yeah."
And
He like
they're
it
kind
was
of
just
my
normal to
adopted
him.
they're kind of my adopted parents right now because my parents have both passed away.
Hmm.
And so I call, every few months I'll call Ed and Deshanka Armstrong just to
Oh,
check in. I mean, they're in their upper 90s. I used to talk once a month with Jane Leggett on FaceTime
wow.
just because she was kind of an adopted mother to me as well.
Oh my
So
gosh. Yeah, she was
she's a character. She was a character. She just
so
passed away
into
about 3 months ago.
Oh no. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
no.
99.
I have so much catching up to do, with camp folks, and I feel like so much of it has gone well, and then every once in a while I'll hear something that is like, I miss that. I miss
Right,
catching up.
right.
99 though. What a
Right.
life.
I mean, when Betty, I mean, I found out, and actually, maybe a few months later that Betty Frere had passed away.
Hmm.
You know that probably, right?
I knew that she was in her last.
Yeah, she passed away about a year ago, I think. And
Okay.
and Jane Leggett didn't know, and she was mad. She's like, "Why didn't anybody tell me that Betty passed away?"
Oh, well, Jeff. I'm not surprised that you're bringing a lot of these things to light that But we still have so much to dig in with you. So
So who was the person we need to find for you?
Rob Deckerman.
Rob Deckerman.
Thing that kept me in touch with people when I went and started a church in the Boston area when I graduated. So when I graduated from college, I then went to Dallas Theological Seminary. And then in the 90s, my wife Mindy and I started a church in Boston. And what we realized is people in Boston aren't like looking in the yellow pages or online. There was no online at the time. They weren't looking for a church, but they were always going away to the mountains to go skiing or whitewater rafting in Maine or mountain biking. So we started something called the Boston Sports Fellowship, which was a way to bring people together and have fun and then talk about spiritual things. And we would camp out, we would go, we did Bike New York. And so a bunch of Camp of the Woods people, including uh, Craig Peterson and Jimmy Olsen and the Leidigs, and like we had people from that, from Camp of the Woods become part of it. And so it was kind of an ongoing way in the 90s, to stay connected to those people.
That's
And
awesome.
some really good memories from that.
Would you allow Yankee fans to be there, or like where Jeff? You're like
Say
kind of
no.
like how
Yeah, I
did
mean,
you?
I'm so confused. I grew up around the Yankees. I lived in Boston.
Yeah,
I
right.
was the chaplain for a while for the New England Revolution. And
Okay.
then I would then periodically do stuff with the Patriots. So I
Oh,
actually became a Patriot fan, sorry,
Oh,
back
hey,
then, back when pre-Tom Brady.
okay.
And so, but now I do love the Bills. I've got to
there you
say,
go.
I do love the Bills. My wife comes from Buffalo. Her
Yeah.
whole family is in like this cult. I guess they call it a mafia, but
Yes.
it's a cult.
Yeah. In the most positive way, it's a mafia.
Right, right.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. We'll take on the Rob Deckerman challenge, and if
Oh yeah.
we can get a hold of him, we will have you two back together.
I know people, Jimmy Olsen and Jeff Johnson, have been in contact with Rob, and
Okay.
apparently he's anxious to share some stories. And I got to
He
play
would be
catch up here.
hilarious to have on. I would highly recommend him.
Yeah.
I have
Well,
no idea. I mean, he could have a beard down to his toes now, just like Dougie Schoen, and
yeah.
no
Right.
idea what Rob's like.
All
Let's
right.
let's switch over to more on the professional side here, either for
Yeah.
the coaching, but I wanted to try and understand, Jeff, you've written some books, right? So when we had Peter Young on, I was asking Don and Peter these questions. We did Don's questions last time, but I'd love to ask you a couple of these questions.
Absolutely.
Like what before we get into the questions here though, I know you've written this is it 8 habits?
The 8 coaching habits.
8 coaching
It
habits.
just came out this week.
Okay, tell me
Yeah.
about it.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna get.
So I became a coach back, but when I said I was a coach, people just assumed I was a football coach
Yeah,
or a basketball
no,
coach.
right.
So I became a coach in 2001. But for me, it came out of my own struggle and pain where I was the pastor of this church that we founded in Boston. And what I found was I was hungry for someone I could process professional things with, but that intersected with personal, and that I could be gut level honest. And it wasn't necessarily a counselor. So I started meeting with a guy named Bob Beal, who was a consultant mentor for leaders. And
Yeah,
as I was meeting with him one time, he talked about, Jeff, what would you love to do if you could do anything? And I said, Bob, could we switch seats? Like, Bob, I have been so changed by what you do. I know so many people who need what you
yeah,
do. And if I could describe what Bob offered for me, it was a safe place to process everything from, where I wanted to go, what I was really gifted at, how I managed my own team, and how I overcame some of the failures. And so I could be gut level honest, but it wasn't really counseling, but it was more about how do I maximize who God's made me.
Hmm.
And
yeah,
Bob at the time didn't call himself a coach. I then discovered, this thing that was emerging in the 90s that was coaching. And and so really what a coach is someone who comes alongside of you to journey for you to fulfill what you're meant to do. And in a
Sure.
lot of ways it's discipleship. It's not telling someone what to do. You're not hierarchically overseeing them. You're helping them process. And it's more about asking questions than it is giving answers. And so
Hmm.
what I found is I am incredibly curious, and probably you guys are too, but a question can change someone's trajectory. But it's got to be the right question. It's got to be asked in the right way. And so coaching was something I started doing. I left being a pastor in 2001. I've been coaching mostly full time. I actually took some time into the financial services realm, but I've been doing it for 24 years.
Yeah.
And in coaching, I started to realize coaches are spiritual leaders and can be spiritual leaders because I mean, I've gotten to come alongside of people in, a lot in career transition, like people who run companies. I've gotten to be their confidant and help them better serve their company. I've gotten to work with political leaders. I mean, I work with 25-year-olds. So it's an amazing,
Mhm.
amazing diversity.
Like our
But a number
kids.
of years ago, my coach said, Jeff, do you see coaching for the rest of your life? And I said, absolutely. But I'm disappointed with the way coaches are trained because I feel like there's so much more a coach could bring if there was a better way of training. So he's like, well, how would you do it? And thus I started to write down what became the 8 coaching habits of like when coaching really changes somebody, what does it look like? How does it
Right.
work? And then in the last few months or last few years, I've started to realize those same principles help someone who leads a company or a church know how to empower their people so that it's not all about them. It's about building up other people to do the work instead of them doing the work.
Yeah. Multiplying.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know what? A couple things that just come to mind from what you said. Uh, One of the most enjoyable series I've ever watched was Ted Lasso, and it's he's a coach. He's a kind of mid-level, semi-successful coach in America that goes to Britain, and soccer's everything, and he coaches it, and it's meant to fail at first, but the owner meets him, and she's anyway. But there's a scene in one of the series that he's playing darts against the owner's ex-husband, and there's a
Hey,
lot at
Don,
stake.
I've got to go stop a barking dog. Keep talking, but I'm going to go have my dog stop barking.
Oh, okay. No worries. I'll hold on for that. Yeah,
I couldn't hear the dog, did you?
I did not. Yep.
No, I don't think his mic
But
was picking it up.
Jeff actually, you could tell like he takes his sound seriously. There's a
Yeah.
microphone there. So oh, there you go. Okay. That's been lurking in the shadows of your.
Yeah. So it's on the side.
Yeah, okay. I've got one too. I just have never used it.
Never
Actually,
used it.
for our podcast, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, this is great.
This is good. Yeah, I want to get into more of the I want to do just a couple of these questions here.
Yeah, please do, because I
But I
know.
want to talk a little bit more about the coaching. He sounds very much like my friend Jay.
Yeah, like who is that? The guy we talked
Yes.
with? Yeah,
Yes,
yep.
it is. Yeah.
Colorado actually too.
Yeah.
But did you see Ted Lasso? Did you
I've
watch?
seen the first 2 seasons. Yes, I love it.
Okay. Did maybe the scene that?
Where you're shooting the darts, and then kind of
Yes.
like the ownership of the team is at stake for
Yes.
the
Yeah.
wife.
Either.
Yes.
Yep. David Thompson just texted me. He wants to. Yep. Next Tuesday, the 29th is good.
We'll do Tuesday.
Okay. He's going to give up squash with the Naval Academy to meet with us for.
Oh, I want to talk squash with him
All
then.
right.
I
That'll
love
be good.
squash. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun.
Okay.
But Jeff's back with us. Good deal.
There we go. We couldn't, by the way, we could not hear your dog.
Not at all. No.
I know you couldn't, but I've got a neighbor who works the night shift as the
Oh.
chief of police,
All right.
Oh.
and he can hear the dog. And I was like, note to self, if I'm ever in the back room and I hear the dog barking, I've got to go stop the dog.
That's a good
He's a
neighbor.
great she's a great Pyrenees, who's a huge bundle of love, but she's out protecting the world, keeping us all
Yeah,
safe.
with her voice. Yeah. So I think when you were leaving off, yeah, Ted Lasso, and um, he was having this dart scene that a lot at stake with the owner and the owner's wife, and if he lost at darts, they would have not lost the team, but it would have gone that direction. But he said something about it's good to be curious and curious. Like I never put much stock into that word. It just sounds like everyone should be curious. But I think what he meant, and then maybe what you were suggesting was if you're curious enough, you'll follow up and you'll ask a
Yes.
question, and that suggests to a person that you really care.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, Vanessa Redgrave said, ask the right questions and you'll get the right answer.
Huh.
So yeah, I was having dinner a few years ago with a guy who is like an iconic billionaire. It wasn't Bill Gates or Elon Musk, but another person, we would know as this very successful billionaire. And so I'm sitting with him and I'm thinking, man, I'm going to get to know so much about him. And he just started peppering me with questions, like question after question after question. So what you get into coaching for? What makes a great coach? Why should I pay a great coach money? Like question after question. I'm like, can I ask you a question now? I mean, after, probably half
Yeah.
an hour. He said, sure. I said, are you always this curious, or is it just me that you're interested in? He laughs. He goes, no, it's not just you. He goes, how do you think I became a billionaire? He goes, I just ask all the questions to everybody
Oh,
and I get the answers, and then I go build a business.
oh my gosh.
And so what I realized, in that is that, one of the most powerful gifts that we can bring somebody is a great question, or our own curiosity. And so one of the habits in the book, I talk about that whole idea of nurturing your curiosity and seeing yourself as being curious about what makes somebody tick, that you are helping them, that's actually a way of serving somebody. And so don't hold back your curiosity. Ask the real questions.
Yeah,
Okay, I have some questions.
that's good.
Questions. There you go.
That's good.
So, that book, I think you are writing out of your expertise or experience from coaching, of course. How would you describe your writing style or method, right? Like, is it I got to get up early in the morning and I set aside time, or is it as it comes to me, I write it down? Don likes to take memos and like piece it all together later.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I was as disciplined in my writing as I am in other aspects of my life. Some things I'm just still not disciplined in, never will be. But I mean, I wrote a book that actually takes place at Camp of the Woods called The
Oh,
Habits of Hope. And 8 years into it, I would pull the book out periodically and I'd read it to people, and they go, when are you going to finish this? And I'd be like, I don't know, and so I think what I need to write is in fact, I actually hired someone to help me as a coach.
mhm.
And what I started doing was just blocking out Tuesday morning between 10 and 12, Thursday morning between 10 and 12. And I had to just sit there. And if I nothing came, nothing came, but that was my writing time,
Hmm.
because
Okay.
it takes me a while, especially if I get distracted by this thing,
Yeah,
to actually be like, not perform, not feel like I need to produce anything. So it helped me to do the books that I did, to block out time where I wasn't allowed to do anything else but write. And then I had a coach who would say, how did it go last week? And part of the benefit of having a coach is just someone who's going to ask you the question, did you do what you said you were going to do?
Yeah, you set a
Talk
goal
about
and
it.
they ask you about it. Okay.
Yeah.
And how
accountability.
long? So scheduling that you have to schedule your time, which I like that. That makes sense to me as well. Just to because I forget who told this quote. A lot of people say they don't have time to do X, right?
Right.
That's not true. They don't make time to do X.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and so part of what coaching allows is someone to help you choose your time, and part of that is just knowing what to say no to. You know,
Yes.
what are the things that are the habits that you need to say no to that are bad habits? It's like, I could say I'm going to eat healthy, but if I then go after I eat healthy and eat ice cream and cake, I'm really not eating healthy. So, so part of coaching is helping someone be intentional to organize their life according to what matters to them. And so a lot of times people don't know what matters to them. They've never really stepped back and decided. So like there's literally three questions that I often ask people in a coaching session. And it's what's important about today, what must be done, and what's important for the future.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And what's important about today could be, make sure I show up for my kid's party. What must be done, I got to pay my phone bill. You
Yeah.
know, like a lot of times we think, the things that are important, will just come to us. And yet, if we can step back and ask those questions, sometimes it's like, yeah, that's really, what's most important.
Yeah, but you know what? All those things you mentioned, they're wins. They're wins, big or small. But if you accomplish them, then you can check them off and move on to other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I heard you say this earlier, though. Even before you can start setting those priorities, you, and I think you had said that you help people understand who they are or who they're supposed to be. So it's kind of like the foundation of what those priorities should be.
Yeah. One of the things I always do with people I start working with is help them define their real values. And by real values, like a value is this is important to me. It's not like, well, I guess integrity should be important and godliness should be important. It's
Yeah.
what's really important to me. So I could tell you what my top six values are, um, because I had a process that helped me define those. And it's so simple, but like my number one is spirituality, time with God, connecting with God. Like that's my number one. Doesn't have to be everybody's. That's mine. Number
Mhm.
two is family. Number three is creativity. Like creativity matters to me. I love creating new things, new books, new processes, new companies. Number four is meaningful work. I want to do something that I can look at and go, that was meaningful in what I see has me to do. Number
Mhm.
five is flexibility. I love having flexibility in my schedule. I don't like having to show up the same time every day. I like eating different breakfasts, going to different restaurants. Sometimes drives my wife crazy. Like, can't we just, go to the same place? And then number six, you guys will relate to this one. It's outdoors and adventure. So, living in Colorado now and now having Whisper Ranch and we've got chickens and dogs and my wife wants to get horses, but we'll see because those are so dang expensive.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel like for me, I've realized, and part of growing up around Camp of the Woods and Speculator was the best memories for me come from being outdoors,
Hmm.
being on the lake, being in the mountains.
Yeah.
So that's a value for me. So like when somebody helps you decide, then other things become, you don't have to make every decision and start over. You've already decided spirituality is your number one value. you know Spend time with God, don't apologize for it. Have habits that are spiritual habits. I decided family was really important. My son came to me when he was like 12 years old, and I was working on my computer, and he said, "Daddy, will you play dominoes with me?" And I'm like, "Sorry, Josh, I'm busy. I'm doing work." He's like, "Oh, okay, Dad." He walks away, and I'm like, "What the heck?" I've
Yeah.
said family is important to me, and
Yeah.
yet I don't have time to play dominoes with my 12-year-old son, you know? So,
Yeah.
um,
I love it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's something that came up quickly. You know, his question wasn't, he was kind of spontaneous, and so but it's reaction time that comes into
right.
play.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it's the whole thing of like, how do we decide ahead of time? So, if I decide I'm going to go, out to dinner and I'm not going to have alcohol, I've already decided. If I say I'm not going to have dessert, I've already decided. And
right.
yet, that's the stuff that, I mean, I work with some, super successful people, and they struggle with things that you go, that super successful person struggles with that.
right.
Well, that's their area.
Well, it personalizes them too. But I will just say, when Tom and I were talking about doing this podcast, one of the questions that Tom, kept coming to me with was like, "Hey, if we're going to do this, how do you envision what what can we commit to time wise? Is it once a week, twice a week, every 2 weeks?" And we just kept talking about it and came about, to settle on, once a week for a couple hours. And, when we come up to, talk with someone, hopefully they're willing to give us that time too, which we don't take for granted. But, so far it's been a successful formula, and and I feel like it's really culminated, tonight with Jeff to, lend what he's doing with coaching. But it gets you to think about those things about, discipline and the way you want to commit to something. And yeah.
I read a book by Dallas Willard a number of years ago called The Spirit of the Disciplines. Are you guys familiar with Dallas Willard?
Yes.
Um, he in this book he basically talks. I mean, you would get this as athletes. He talked about if you wanted to bat, like I think he used Pete Rose as an example. You could say, "I'm going to watch Pete Rose," and I want to then go bat like him. I'm going to get up and bat. He's like, if you're going to bat like Pete Rose, you need to go practice like Pete Rose. You need to go into
Huh.
batting cages. You need to swing three bats. And he's like, when it comes to the spiritual life, we need to learn how to practice the spiritual life like Jesus did.
Huh.
And that was one of those like, mind blown. How come I never heard that? That makes so much sense.
Right.
And so my wife now leads something that she and I started in the 1990s called Soul Care. Soulcare.com is her site. And it just helps leaders know how to practice ways of connecting to the vine, caring for their soul, having time downtime when you guys know there's too many leaders of churches, of companies, of organizations, burn out, flame out, just plain leave and head out, and so what are the ways that we can practice? So like part of even coaching is helping somebody find what are their practices. You don't need to do it the way I do, but how do you find your practices so that you show up for your team or for your sermons, whatever you're doing, and you're at your best, you're alive, you're present. And
They can
so
count on you to be.
habits you
Well,
create are the things that allow you to do that.
but then as a leader, building a culture where everybody can thrive as well. Because
Yes.
that I think in my, I'll tell you about my other friend who does similar work. That's his focus is really doing leadership development so that they can then build cultures for
Build
effective
leaders who
team.
build leaders.
Yes,
Right. So
effective
that's
team.
why I took the 8 coaching habits. So I've been training professional leadership coaches, executive coaches, transformational coaches the last 7 years, people who do it like I do as a profession. And as I've been coaching people who lead companies and churches and mission organizations, I started to realize a lot of their challenges are that they feel overwhelmed by not being able to really manage and empower the people they work with. And
Huh.
so they feel like they've got to do it all. They get overwhelmed, they get burned out. They're working 20 hours a week. And what the aha for me was, if you learn how to coach, then you're empowering them and you're no longer doing stuff for them or thinking you need to be the expert in the things that they're doing.
Right.
So the reason I wrote the 8 coaching habits was to be able to take what I've been doing as a coach for the last 24 years and bring it to people who may not be professional coaches, but want to develop a culture of leadership.
Yeah, that's his target
That's awesome.
audience for
Door, I'll be right back.
what he does. Yeah.
Put a pen in.
I wanted to ask you one of the other writer questions is what what authors do you like to read? Like what are you reading now?
I read so many books constantly that it's almost crazy. I mean, my addiction is Amazon showing up at the door. So, I mean, I tend to have a favorite author at a time. Um, I mean, I read history. I read a lot of business development and business books.
Okay.
Um, Golly, it's almost really hard for me to jump in and say
Who,
right
who's your favorite author?
now. I don't think I have a. I mean, I've read everything Henry Nouwen has written on the spiritual life.
Yeah.
Um, I've got a mentor right now who's a writer who I'm in his coaching program. I really like this guy and learn a lot from him. His name is Myron Golden. If you look on YouTube, he has got millions of viewers, and he's a really good teacher. Brings the Bible to business and business development and sales, and so he's been a great mentor. I've loved his teaching and his
Yeah.
books. So that's my current. And there's also somebody I just golly, it's almost like where did my mind go? I mean, I read too many books, and so I'm
Keep
constantly
'em straight.
going
Yeah.
through. What is the guy I just started reading?
Writing
Oh,
room.
Marshall Goldsmith is he teaches coaching at Harvard, and he's a coach to many Fortune 500 CEOs. He's a Buddhist and comes from that vantage point.
Huh.
I can weed out enough of what's
Yeah.
Buddhist and see good in his practices and the way one of the things he brings to leaders is helping them say what to say no to and
Mhm.
how to do that. And so I've learned a lot. What I tell people in coaching is more is caught than taught. So the reason I mean, I'm working with 2 coaches. I've worked with many coaches in my years, but I feel like I learn a lot by processing with people who are good at what they do.
That to me defines discipleship, which is doing life together as opposed to a curriculum.
Yeah, and the way I see, I mean, I love good sermons. I love good teaching, but what I see in coaching provides the opportunity for life on life in businesses, in places sometimes that you wouldn't necessarily need a sermon. And so what we've developed, if you look at whisperranch.com, we've got 26 acres in Boulder that look out at the mountains, look out at the Flatirons, and we've said it's devoted not necessarily to messages and speaking, but to allowing people to process, allowing people to hang out, allowing people to have experiential learning. And it's not always, a straight line, but God's given us this land to be able to use that. For people who are struggling with where do I go next in my career? I don't want to burn out. How do I keep from that? I work sometimes with couples in transition, and so it provides a space for that kind of learning, which is much more processing.
Awesome. Well done, Tom. Of course, you just
There
kind of
it is.
appear, I guess. Yeah, I was going to say we'll put the links up on on the podcast, but as
Yeah, this is
opposed to
fantastic.
yeah, I was going to ask you, Jeff. When you talk about speakers, are there speakers at camp that you recall as really connecting with you?
Yeah, maybe you can help remember who this was. I think he was the head of Ontario Bible College, and
Okay.
he and his wife spoke on encouragement.
Hmm.
And it was when I was on staff, and it was on the power of encouragement. And I mean, I still feel like that was the most powerful messages I'd ever heard.
Okay.
And part of in coaching, a question to ask is, what is the most powerful message you've ever heard? Because it says a lot about you,
Hmm.
right? It says, and so, golly, if I can remember his name. Dave Burnham certainly had a huge impact in his teaching, but this guy, his one message series was all week on encouragement. And I feel like part of what I've needed in my life, and here's the book I wrote that takes place up in Speculator called The Habits of Hope.
Yeah. There we go.
And
All right.
but it's all about getting your hope back when you've lost it. And so, we all go through phases where we're like, what comes next? Am I really okay? Am I on the right path? And encouragers are the people who breathe back life into us to help us keep going.
Yeah.
And that message from that guy back when I was probably 18 years old, and again, I can't remember his name, but I could tell you a lot about his messages.
Apparently, yeah, it really stuck with you, and I'm not. You might think I'm the perfect person to be like, oh yeah, who is that? But I
Maybe
was.
your mom or dad know.
Yeah,
I
they
bet your
would.
dad knows.
Yeah, and they'll
Yeah.
watch this
They'll
and
tell
let me
me.
know.
They'll let me know. I don't know if
In
they're
the
alive.
comments.
I mean, they were old then, but I still think I'm young. So
Yeah, well, I was probably 15 when you were then, and I was just being like, I don't really want to go. I think I'll do pizza duty or something. But
right, right.
now I realize, oh, I should have been catching up more.
Should have taken notes.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, we're going to run out of time. I want to do one last thing, if you can indulge, Jeff.
Jeff,
Yeah.
by the
And
way,
by the way, if anyone's interested in the 8 coaching habits, you can
yes,
go to the8coachinghabits.com.
Yeah,
I want to make sure that we will put those links up on this podcast too, because yeah, I'm
Bragging
kind of
rights.
catching up too. I really want to read that, and I know from what you said, there's definitely things that I could.
yeah, I want to get it as well. So that's better to get it there than on Amazon.
Yeah. So I mean, there's reasons why I don't have it on Amazon.
Okay.
Okay,
And part of it is it comes with masterclass, it comes with the audio version. And
okay,
then I'm also building a community of
Sure.
people who want to build leadership cultures. And so if you do it through Amazon, you really don't connect and you don't have their
Yeah.
contact
all
information.
right, okay. We'll make
Uh,
sure we connect with you here after, and that we find the best way for people to obtain this, and ourselves included.
exactly. Who are
Ah,
these folks?
I know those guys.
Who are these
hey.
folks?
What's that?
Who are these folks?
Yeah, so I do a retreat that takes place at Whisper Ranch, except it was so cold that day, this was in my house. I do a retreat called The Soul of the Coach. And
Okay.
it's for coaches and leaders who want to develop their own spiritual life. One of the
Okay.
things that I teach in coaching is who you are as a coach and how you show up presently is even more important than your strategy. And so by having regular retreats for coaches, we process. And so this is an amazing group of people, diverse. You have a doctor there, you have a person who's a head of a school system, you have a pastor, you have professional executive coaches, and so like I love retreats and bringing people together where they're gonna learn some content, but process and learn from each other. And we do very experiential type of exercises. So that's we train coaches. WeTrainCoaches.com is the coach training site. And then like a couple of these people also train coaches now.
Awesome. Wow.
And I want to point out, Don, I think, Jeff, you're taking this picture.
Yeah.
This is really good selfie skills.
All
Yeah,
right.
his arm,
I used to
yeah,
do
you see his
selfies
shoulder, but
before they
yeah.
were even, cool. I
Yeah.
remember I'd have a girlfriend and, I'd take a picture like that. And it was us with the sunset in the back, probably a Camp of the Woods. But like when other people started doing selfies, I was thinking, man, I was ahead of my time.
Yeah, right.
So you're a master at this, obviously. That's good. All right, one more picture here. Who are these folks?
That is part of my family. Yeah, that now there's another daughter-in-law. So this is in Italy when the guy in the middle got married to they got married right north of Venice. So I've got three sons, Jeff, who's in the middle there with my wife, that's
Yep.
Mindy.
Yep.
And that's my son on my other side there on the right in the picture is my son Jonathan, who just started a company literally today called Sun Tallow. So we've got entrepreneurs in the family.
Apparently.
And that's
Yeah.
my son Josh and his wife Gertie on that side. They now have a son named Samuel, and they live in Mexico, in Mazatlan, Mexico.
Oh,
John, who's coming here tonight, actually lives the North Shore of Hawaii. So I've got kids in Hawaii, Mexico,
wow.
and then fortunately Denver. Um,
Yeah, they spread out, don't they?
yep.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
I just
That's
thought this
that's
was
about 5 years ago. I think it's
okay.
almost exactly 5 years ago in Italy.
awesome.
Yeah, that's near Venice then, right?
Yep. Yep.
I thought this was Italy. And I see it says Verona right here, which I think is their word.
Oh, okay. That's in Verona. That we we
Okay.
we took a side trip to Verona when
Oh,
we
that's
were
like
there.
right near Utica, Route
Yeah, right near.
Sure it is. Sure it
Everything
is.
revolves around speculator if you're from
Yeah, it
speculator.
does.
I mean, there's Rome, there's Utica, and you've got the whole Middle East out there.
Orneville, yeah.
Syracuse. Yeah, I love it.
Wow, that's good. Good find, Tom. Yeah, that's awesome.
This has been awesome, Jeff. I really appreciate the
Yeah,
time you spent with us. Great topics and great discussion, and of course the camp stories.
yeah. I saw Todd this summer, briefly. It was the first service that our family made it back to after 21 years, 22 years, and
And you saw Todd there.
yeah, he was out front,
Yeah.
and he didn't
And
recognize
he
me at
has
first.
not skipped a beat in skiing and water skiing.
He
I
looks
mean,
the
the guys are
same,
kind
and
of
I was just gonna say he didn't recognize me. I don't think at first that I recognized him immediately, and you and your brother Mark, and we just were talking to another, the Young family or Peter Young, and all you guys are. I mean, I say this as a dude. You're a good-looking family.
you say it as a dude. I can
Todd
appreciate
looks
that.
the
Thank
same,
you.
and
Thank
you're
you.
so,
But
well, yeah,
yeah, I
so.
mean, Todd is, I think he's like 69 years old,
Is he
and he
really?
and Rich Armstrong are skiing things that should be closed, and no human being should be skiing down. I mean, I skied with them out here at A Basin, and they said they wanted to go down this run that had this Italian name, and there were all these signs there that basically said, "Don't go down there. You're stupid if you do." And we of course went down there because my brother Todd and Rich
Wow.
Armstrong.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's great. So,
Love it.
yeah, well,
Well, this has been so much fun. I mean, I do feel like even just getting the chance to read this, and I told my brothers it feels like an amazing walk down memory
oh,
lane.
thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. And, from day one when I reached out to you, I think you're somebody that I saw on Facebook, and I remember fondly, and was just thinking I would love to have you on. And your immediate response was, "That would be fun. Like, let's do it." You were like, "I don't know." You were just like, so it was just a matter
Well,
of
you can
when.
ask Tom. You can ask Tom. Was it fun?
It
Oh,
was beyond fun. I think I learned a lot as well.
yeah,
It was very entertaining. So yeah, it's good stuff.
yeah.
Really good.
Great.
Yeah, and we'd love to promote what you're doing,
Yeah.
and hopefully Jeff will.
You can't come on out to Boulder and to Whisper Ranch. I mean, it would be a joy. And I do need to connect you to all my in-law brothers. You would love my brother-in-law Mike, my brother-in-law John. Joe is about to move from New Zealand in June back to and live in Hamburg. And he's going to
Really?
work an hour away at an Anglican church.
All right.
So you would have so much fun and laughter with the McGarry family of
I
Hamburg
would,
Hill. Yeah,
yeah, we'll do that. I remember Joe, for whoever is still in Western New York, give them my contact through whatever Facebook email, and I would love to connect and let you know how it goes, which of course would be, I'm sure, awesome. So
that's great. I know my
Oh,
brother-in-law Mike has been very connected to the Bills and like guys from the Bills, and he's
cool.
been involved with a lot of men's ministry stuff and done a lot with some of those guys. I'm sure you know a lot of them.
Yeah, well, I might, depending on, it's been since 2017, but
Well,
uh,
and he knows a lot of the guys that go back to the Kelso era. You
there
know,
you go. Yeah, I
yeah,
do too. Yeah, that's kind of my wheelhouse.
yeah, yeah.
so Jeff, my daughter lives in Littleton, so we do go out occasionally. I think it'd be really fun to get a ski trip together next
Oh,
year.
I would love that. I literally, with my small group the other night, I was saying I live in Colorado and I feel like I just don't ski enough. And
mm,
but for me, skiing is really doing it with people. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
doing it alone it just doesn't have the same thing. So
No,
I would be all over it.
all right. Well,
yeah,
I think we need to talk about February and March next year.
Sounds awesome.
here we
There's a
go,
few
Tom.
places to
Another.
ski out here that are a little better than Oak Mountain. Just saying.
I can't. I'm not skiing out here. I'm not skiing on the East Coast
We've had that
anymore.
conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not the
I love
same.
Oak Mountain, but I
Dude,
understand.
I love Oak Mountain too, but
Yeah, but
I
it's
mean, when you're choosing between, Winter Park, Vale,
yeah,
Breckenridge, or Oak Mountain, it's kind of like,
yeah,
yeah, let's go to Breckenridge,
you're right.
yes.
As long as you can.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, Jeff, oh my
All
gosh,
right.
love it. Thank
All
you.
right. Godspeed, guys. Stay in
Yeah.
Thanks
touch.
so much.
All right.
Talk soon.
Good
Yeah.
night.